Okay, he's rushing back. Sure. Tick tock. Here he comes. No?
That was me.
That was you.
Sorry.
I do want to note that this meeting of the Lincoln-Lancaster County Railroad Transportation Safety District, commonly referred to as the RTSD, is subject to and adheres to the Nebraska Open Meetings Act. A copy of the Open Meetings Act is available for inspection and is posted by the entrance to this room. The RTSD agenda and all the materials that are being considered at today's meeting were posted on the RTSD website on Wednesday, November 22nd, 2017. The RTSD website is also accessible by links from both the City of Lincoln and Lancaster County's official government sites. In addition, on November 28th, the meeting agenda was posted on the bulletin board located in City Hall, first floor, 555 South 10th Street. A copy of the agenda is also available at the entrance to this room. One copy of the meeting agenda and all the materials being considered today are located on the dais, and complete copies of these materials are also on file at the RTSD office, 949 West Bond Street, Suite 200. And with that, we will move to item 3 on the agenda, approval of the minutes from previous meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second for approval. Any comments or corrections? Call the roll, please.
Brinkman?
Yes.
Christensen?
Yes.
Shore?
Yes.
Wilchin?
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously. Item 4, report of financial statement activity.
Good morning, Liz Thanel from Lancaster County Budget and Fiscal Office. You have the report in front of you that runs from July 1st to November 20th of 2017. You have tax revenues of $1,706,100 to date. Interest income is at $39,903. So your total receipts to date are $1,746,003. Expenditures, you've paid out $33,808 in commissions. Operating costs are at $18,793. Construction project costs are at $10,082,563. So your total disbursements to date are $10,135,164. The last reconciliation of the bank on October 30th, you had $493,743 in the bank. There was a transfer pending of $17,883, which left you at $511,627 cash, with investments of $10,742,666. So your total fund balance on November 20th was $11,254,293. And the bottom of your report shows where all of your investments were at. You had about a third of them in a money market at about $3.5 million, 3 different money markets, and the rest were in CDs.
Questions for Liz? Are those the interest rates that we're seeing at the bottom there, along with the name of the financial institution?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay, I will move approval of the financial statement. And if we need one, do we need an approval of that? No?
No.
Yes.
I think is that a yes? Okay, so moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. We have been joined by City Councilperson Jane Raybold. Call the roll, please.
Christensen?
Yes.
Raybold?
Yes.
Shore?
Yes.
Jen?
Yes.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0. Moving on, consideration of the fiscal year 17 final audit report. Morning, Tony.
Good morning. I'm Tony Jarena with HBE LLP. Here to tell you that the final draft of the audit that you now have is virtually identical to the draft that you approved at the last meeting. The only small change was an addition of a notation in the subsequent events note on page 12, note G, to note that the district in August of 2017 paid $10 million of its $20 million commitment to the City of Lincoln for the South Beltway project. So that is the only change to the report.
And again, what page was that on?
That'll be on page 12. Under note G.
Any questions regarding the financial audit? Not?
I move acceptance of the fiscal year 2017 final audit report.
Second.
Additional comments or questions? Call the roll, and Jane is absent. Good.
She's coming back.
Yes.
Shore?
Yes.
Wilchin? Brinkman?
Yes.
Christensen?
Yes.
We are approving the financial audit.
Yes.
All right. Motion carries 6-0. Okay. And did you have anything else?
Yes, I do have a notation to make. It dealt with the budget that was approved at the last meeting. Back on September 12th, the RTSC voted to approve the 2017-18 general budget prepared by us. On October 26th, Roger was contacted by Jeff Schreier of the State Auditor's Office that did not receive a copy of the minutes approving the 1% increase in the Restricted Funds Authority. Roger then contacted me to discuss the situation, and I explained to him that I incorrectly included the 1% increase on the original budget document. I then contacted the State Auditor's Office and asked them how to correct the error, to which they said just resubmit the one page without the 1% increase, to which I made the correction and provided it to Roger, and I'm assuming that went over to the State Auditor's Office. So that closes the matter.
Okay. Thank you very
Right,
much.
thank you.
Item number 6, consideration of the interlocal regarding the Pine Lake Road Railroad crossing.
Okay. Good morning, Roger Feigert. Consistent with practice in the past, the RTSD has helped with the cost of railroad improvements as it relate to projects, capital improvement projects that the city or the county is doing. And the city is continuing in their capital improvement program for the improvement of Pine Lake Road from just east of 56th Street over to Highway 2, and the OPPD line does cross there. The RTSD has been providing money in its proposed CIP to pay for the new railroad crossing at that location. In this current fiscal year, the RTSD has budgeted $100,000, and then there is a proposed $500,000 in the subsequent year, 18-19. Monies not expended would be carried over and rebudgeted in future years. The interlocal agreement is the formal and official authorization passed by this board to physically make those payments or transfer those monies when billed by either the city or the county. Just by virtue of the fact that it's in the budget doesn't mean we pay without this interlocal agreement. So this is consistent with that. And Zach Becker from City of Lincoln Public Works is here, and I was going to have him give you just a brief and executive update of the status of the Pine Lake project, where it is, the work that they expect to be doing, and some of the bills that they might send to us for this year, and when that project would be done. So, Zach, thank you for being here.
Morning.
Good morning. My name is Zach Becker. I'm with the City of Lincoln and Public Works. Pine Lake Road project is a major roadway widening project, similar to Yankee Hill Road that just was completed in the southeast part of Lincoln. 2-year project. Like Roger said, it's between 61st Street and over to Highway 2. Railroad work's expected to take place in the 2nd year of construction, so probably about 18 months from now. Currently, the project is out to bid publicly, and that will be closing on December 20th. So we should be getting a contractor on board here in the next couple months, and hopefully construction will begin on this project in March of next year, 2018. And again, like I said, 2-year project, so overall the project will probably be complete in October, November of 2019.
Questions about the RTSD's role in this project? Jennifer?
I think I just have a question. Is this interlocal only for 1 year, even though it's a 2-year
Yes.
project?
Yes, and consistent RTSD capital or budgets, capital improvement programs do not automatically reappropriate. So that is for 1 year and 1 year only. If the money doesn't get expended, we would propose rebudgeting that money in the upcoming year. This would be an authorization to spend up to $100,000 this fiscal year if the city bills us for those activities between now and July 1st.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve the interlocal?
So moved.
Second?
Call the roll, please.
Rabel,
Yes.
Shore,
Yes.
Wilchin,
Yes.
Brinkman,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
Lamb,
Yes. Yes. Motion carries 6-0. Moving on to item 7. Zach, thank you for being here. Consideration of the interlocal regarding the Jamaica Trail connection.
Okay, without repeating myself, Sarah Hartzell from Parks Department is here. I'll ask her to come up. This is another city project in which the RTSD is providing cost sharing and helping to pay for a grade separation trail bridge in southwest Lincoln. And again, the RTSD has provided in its current budget for 17-18 $200,000. The discussion and the plan in our long-range plan and our CIP was that the RTSD could possibly contribute up to $600,000 over the next 3 fiscal years. The one before you today is just the first year of $200,000, and Sarah is here to give you an update of just the status of that project and where it is. So Sarah, thank you for being here.
Thank you, Roger. Good morning, Sarah Hartzell from the Parks and Recreation Department. I've got a couple things that I would be happy to leave with you here today. We have a brochure that Olson Associates has developed for this project so that you get kind of a pretty picture of what it would look like, but a little less pretty, but still useful, is an engineer's drawing of the concept for this plan. This has been shared with the Burlington Northern folks with Amber Stoffler, but we're talking about a bridge that would span from the Rock Island Trail at about Densmore Park. Got this map here. That orange square is pointing to the spot where we would make that connection. Densmore Park is right adjacent to that. We have the BNSF double line that runs down along the edge of Wilderness Park, and then Jamaica North Trail is on the other side of that BNSF. You can see from some of the photos that they've included in here, we have a significant trespass issue in that area. Despite the fact that there is not a trail that connects at that point right now, there are still a lot of cyclists that make that connection by running down the embankment and across that active railroad line. And you can see that the railroad has tried to alleviate that with some signage, and they do post personnel out there on occasion also to stop that activity. Little prettier picture of what that bridge might look like. Coming from Densmore down in the corner here, across the BNSF and over to an old railroad bridge that sits there that used to transport the Rock Island Trail, and using that to get down to the Jamaica North Trail, which runs along basically the parallel to the railroad there. So we'd be looking in this first year. This winter, we would like to hire our engineer for the design. We've got a lot of preliminary work completed. It looks like the bridge will be about 150 feet long with an additional ramp that would be needed to get from the embankment edge to the bridge abutment. So we're talking about somewhere around 175 to 180 feet long. Probably be, I think, our longest pedestrian bridge. We would be starting the engineering this year and working with the railroad to make sure that we have all the necessary permits, and then looking at construction in 2019.
Is there anything you'd want to share about the fundraising component for the bridge?
The fundraising right now has been mostly on a one-to-one basis. We have a gentleman who's working with GPTN to identify major fundraisers, and he's been quite successful. Now, I believe they're going to kick off a wider fundraising program this winter in February, March, to reach out to the entire community.
That's the Great Plains Trail Network?
Great Plains Trails Network, yes, sorry.
Okay.
I speak in abbreviations sometimes.
Okay, on page 2, number 3, it says purpose. The purpose of this agreement is for the district to aid the city in funding for the project improvements. Now, does that imply the city has expenses it's going to be footing on this as well?
The city is planning on putting $250,000 into the project, so roughly 1/4 of the funding will come from the city.
RTSD money, city money, and Great Trails.
Donation. Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Okay.
Jane?
Sarah, could you tell me again when you're going to hire the engineer this winter and then hopefully continue to work with BSNF, but when will the construction start?
In 2019. So we would go through the engineering process and permitting in the winter of 18-19, and then in the 19-20 construction year is when we would be building.
Okay, great, thank you.
Will it be done within one construction season?
I believe so. We don't have any plans for it to span 2 construction seasons at this time.
All right, are there any additional questions for Sarah? If not, we'll accept a motion to approve the interlocal.
So moved.
Second?
Call the roll, please.
Shore,
Yes.
Wilchin,
Yes.
Brinkman,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
Lamb,
Yes.
Rabel,
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0. Item number 8, Hastings Sub-Engineering Amendment.
Before we go to item 8, I might mention Chris Humphrey, who has done a lot of work in helping the RTSD, has found some new technology out there that is kind of called a heat signature. And it really doesn't measure the heat of a human body, but it measures the signatures of cell phones to the point that on a map you can actually show a line where trespassing or there's heavy use of a trail or activity. And I think that technology would be something that we can continue to use in the future, perhaps to measure priorities, you know, how much use is on that trail. Clearly, and at some point I will, as we get that technology so it's easier to share that with the board so you can actually see the reference of how many people are actually trespassing down there on that trail location. So interesting how technology keeps growing. So.
Does it attach to drones?
I don't know. Right now, it's simply measuring, knowing where you are with your phone.
Oh.
That application is uploading that and showing lines of travel on different routes and locations across the community. So, okay. Amy, if you would go to HDMI. The next item is consideration of the Hastings Sub-Engineering Amendment. What you have on your screen right now is the original drawing that we looked at when we were studying Quiet Zone through Southwest Lincoln, and that is the red line in that location in there. And as we looked at that and the discussion came up that maybe it made some sense, were there some other alternatives, we talked about, well, gosh, maybe we should run the trains around through Hobson Yard. So we entered into an engineering agreement with Olson & Associates to study what it would take to run a new track through the Hobson Yard area right here and see what that would cost and compare that back to quiet zones, pluses and minuses of all of those. What we found was let's see, let me put that down. So we went to the railroad and asked them about that concept. And this is a drawing that initially, when we scoped out the project with Olson Associates, we were just looking at running a new track right through Hobson Yard itself. Well, as we got into that and started meetings with the railroad, they came back to us and said, well, they didn't want the track, they wanted the new track to extend east of Salt Creek. This is Salt Creek right here, the east end of Hobson Yard, and they wanted that track to come all the way back over here, which added several more switches and some complexity, a bridge going across Salt Creek. In addition, because if in fact this line was, oh, my fingers, I apologize, they shake too much. If we actually abandon this line, this is Yankee Hill brick in this location down here. The railroad wanted us to add 8,000 feet of new parallel track down here so they could actually have a train setting there and still run trains in and out. They also asked for this proposed Y track, building a new track here so trains could come in and just curve and drive down to Yankee Hill instead of coming down the Cobb line and then having to back in. So that clearly is additional work that was above and beyond what we had scoped with Olson and Associates. So the amendment that you have before you today, it would increase the existing agreement $38,520, and the tasks are laid out in that appendix that you have there as well. The reason that we're actually before the board today is the fact that within the existing budgeted item, there isn't enough additional budget to increase that improvement. If there's money in the budget, the chair and the executive director can improve amendments to engineering. But what actually happened was we have a $50,000 budget for this year, which I was expecting to take this amendment and still have a little bit of money left over. There was a $31,000 or $33,000 invoice of work done prior to July 1st that didn't get paid till July 1. That had to come out of this year's budget, which ate into the $50,000 budget. So we're here today asking for two things. One, the consideration of approving this amendment and increasing the contract. And in order to pay for that, I would suggest to you that we would take $35,000 out of miscellaneous engineering from 100, that would move that down to 65, and that 35 would be added into the Hobson Yard line item. So with that, I would certainly answer any questions, and Olson's are here today too, if you've got any questions for them as well.
Jane, then Roy.
So Roger, this is, this additional amount is only for the engineering work to take care of the changes that have been requested by the railroad, right?
Yes.
And will they also give us an estimate on the actual cost to do some of the?
The goal at the end of the study is to have a cost, there's also dollars in here for a cost-benefit ratio. To see that, and yes, the goal would be to have an updated estimate of the actual costs. Just because the railroad has asked for these improvements doesn't mean that we automatically may pay for them. I think there are some of us that feel that these might be betterments, but you can't blame the railroad for asking for perhaps betterments or improving their situation. We may or may not be paying for them in the end. That would be if we have a cost-benefit ratio that you all believe in, and if we have a project that we believe is appropriate, the board could take action on that later on.
Okay, thank you.
Right.
Okay, it might be nice at this moment to just review the why of this project. So people out there that we're getting some correspondence questioning the purpose of this. So please just review briefly the purpose of making this kind of change.
Well, the whole purpose is the RTSD has been doing quiet zones all across our community, which simply is putting in safety improvements at arterial, at-grade street crossings with railroads, medians, gates, lights. And this Hastings line that the Amtrak line runs on in southwest Lincoln, and why don't you go back Amy to HDMI. We started that study again and started looking at creating a quiet zone. And the costs on that were not insignificant, probably in the 5 million plus or minus range. So as we looked at all of those crossings down through there, we can quiet the horns, but you still have the conflict daily between trains running and cars trying to come back and forth on those arterial streets. So the board at a public meeting said, well, maybe we should rethink that. You know, you can improve the safety, but you still have the conflicts. Is there an alternative project that improves safety, reduces the conflicts, and overall is better? And so that's where this idea came up to restudy, and instead of doing a quiet zone along that Hastings line, that we would actually rebuild and send that line through Hobson.
So, Roger, what are the implications with this project as the city expands westward into that area between that Hastings line and the proposed bypass?
As the city expands west, certainly traffic will pick up on some of those other roads, so there will still be some of those at-grade conflicts out there in the future. But more of that area is in the floodplain. I expect a little less density in development along that line. So while the vehicular traffic will still have that conflict, and that probably grows in the future, it would be at a much less rate, I believe, than the current line over here. You know, today Van Dorn's got 5,500 cars on it, South Street 4,000. Those numbers diminish quite a bit as you move further west. And maybe this would be a good time to also reference that we've received several letters, and several of you as elected officials got letters from ProRail Nebraska, and they have come out officially saying they're in opposition to the project. They have graciously invited me to their next board meeting, which is this coming Saturday, and I think they are very interested in knowing more about the RTSD, what its mission is, thinking that maybe their vision and our mission are much more closely aligned than in conflict. So I'll be there to talk about the RTSD and also talk about what the goal of this project is. And certainly no final decisions have been made to abandon that line, which they seem to be opposed to. So I want to go and listen and make that presentation, and we'll report back to the board. And we'll keep them involved as a stakeholder as these projects move ahead.
Did you, Todd?
I did. Thanks, Roger, for mentioning that, because that was something that, yeah, we had received a copy of that letter. And I've worked with ProRail in the past, and they're very knowledgeable about issues related to both commercial and other freight types of rail passage issues. The question I had, and Roy asked the why, I'm going to ask about the when.
What?
The when.
When?
Like how long? Okay. The changes that we are proposing, or we're looking at, that were proposed by the railroad. I mean, I think one of the issues for those that are concerned about this study is that it's potentially delaying the inevitable quiet zone. And so I don't know if you could explain kind of as a time frame.
Well, I would hope, and we're so dependent on the responses or lack thereof from the railroad in getting information back. You know, I think our hope was to have a report at this meeting of kind of the status of that. The railroad has asked for the extra. So I guess, again, the goal would be by the end of this fiscal year to have some better numbers so this board could take into account, do we go back to a quiet zone? Do we look at an abandonment? What is the schedule to do those? Even if we had a decision at the end of this fiscal year, you're talking about several years minimum of design. You know, it's easily 4 to 6 years out there probably before you would start. And it's possible there could be some other alternatives that come up besides just a quiet zone. There's some other treatments that perhaps could be done to those crossings as well. So, you know, I feel bad that we're maybe holding things back. ProRail would say there's not that many trains, so maybe the train horn is not as big a deal during the day and night as some of us would say. So that's one of the other things I hope to get from them is what is the actual train count running through those days, through those areas. I have not received a number of complaints from the neighborhoods out there. I think they're being very respectful and kind, perhaps.
So you anticipate that and I apologize, I've got allergies, but you anticipate that we'll have a feasibility study report by the end of the fiscal year, and then at that time, we would be able to make a decision about whether or not we move forward?
That's certainly the goal, yes.
And that would be June of 2018?
Yes.
Cindy?
Thank you. Thanks for being here, Roger. I'm glad to hear that you're going to be attending that meeting over the weekend. Could you just shoot us an email kind of with a thumbnail report of kind of what their suggestions or recommendations might be or what their concerns are?
Yes.
Thank
and
you.
I was proposing to write a draft, I have a draft response that was going to go back to those letters, and I just haven't finished that up yet to mail it out. And I'll make sure that everyone that was CC'd on those letters that came in from ProRail gets a copy.
Because they may very well give us a foreshadowing of potential for future alternatives, ideas. So.
Okay.
Any other questions?
If not,
on the
we'll entertain a
amendment?
motion to accept the amendment to the engineering contract.
So moved.
Second?
Call the roll, please.
Wilchin?
Yes.
Brinkman?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Lamb?
Yes.
Raybold?
Yes.
Shore?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Motion carries 6-0. On to item...
Did your amendment intend to include the transfer of $35,000 from miscellaneous engineering down to that project amendment?
Maker of the motion?
Yes, it was. But do we need to specify that?
Yes, please.
So,
That the motion was intended to include
Yes.
the specific transfer of funds?
correct.
Okay.
Second?
In the second.
Second?
Do you,
The same roll?
let's just do that for safety, for insurance reasons. We'll just call the roll, clarifying.
Okay.
The transfer of funds is portion, those are part of the amendment.
So, the new roll. Okay. Brinkman?
Yes.
Christensen?
Yes.
Lamb?
Yes.
Raybold?
Yes.
Shore?
Yes.
Wilchin?
Yes.
Okay. Motion carries 6-0 on the second portion. Item 10, or 9 and 10, 33rd and Cornhusker.
Okay. David Carey from City County Planning Department is here to assist. I'll at least open this up. As we all know, the RTSD is working on a major project initiative and potential for trying to eliminate the conflicts of the 33rd and Cornhusker and 35th and Adams railroad grade separations. Looking at a significant expenditure, and with input and encouragement from the community to really evaluate land use, future, the vision of Northeast Lincoln. Conversation started with Lincoln Lancaster County Planning Department and Public Works about maybe doing some additional planning and study to make sure that any RTSD expenditures were expended wisely and fit the future of that part of Northeast Lincoln. So David is here to explain a little bit about what this first study is included and the city's participation in that with the RTSD.
Yeah, thank you, Roger. Thank you for some time today on this topic. I'm here representing the city in addition to just the planning department, but very excited about this opportunity to study this area. It became clear that there was interest and a need to take a closer look in a sub-area manner and land use manner at this area in coordination with this major improvement. And many of you sitting up here had this idea and/or were very supportive of this idea, and I appreciate that. With the level of investment that is anticipated here from the RTSD project, there was a need to look at the land use, and in a lot of ways, this is an economic development study to look at what the opportunity is here and what the best and highest use of the land is here once that improvement for the transportation network is installed. As well as just needing to coordinate the land use and the design of the overall improvement for the RTSD project. So what has happened basically is that we have, and are bringing forward to you today, the opportunity to have an agreement between the RTSD and the city, not only to coordinate on this, but on a financial basis to allow for a coordinated study to move forward. And that study includes a land use, look at things in the sub-area as identified, as well as a look at the corridor, because the corridor is an important piece of this, because that entryway in and out of the area for the city in and of itself, as well as for this area, there's some opportunities there to improve how it looks and how it functions, in addition to how it interacts with this major transportation improvement through the RTSD project. So the planning department was able to bring forward some monies to help pay for the city portion of the cost. I would take this opportunity to thank directly and appreciably the Public Works Department to basically pay the balance of that, to make sure that this study on the planning side of things is done well. Our consultant team that's been put together for this is excellent. Olson Associates is here as well to represent that consulting team. But they will do an excellent job. I'm very confident in that. And the scope of services that's been put together is very, very good in the sense of really getting into the issues that are here, as well as coming out of the other end of this with a very good study and a plan of action to be coordinated with the RTSD project. So with that, I'll stop and see if you have any questions.
Todd?
I know I've had conversations about this study, but can you refresh my memory? What are the boundaries of the study?
Very good question. Coming from our scope of services, this is the map that we have there. So wait for it to come up. There we go. So what you see in the yellow outline, that is the actual sub-area study boundary. Here, this larger area that is in red, more of a rectangle, that is the kind of the NEPA study area. But getting more closely looking at the directly affected land area for the potential, the RTSD design and the project, that is the area that would be studied for the study boundary. The corridor itself actually will be larger than that. It'll go from about 56th Street down to I-180 as far as Cornhusker Highway is concerned. And that's because obviously the travel in and out of the area kind of is impacted by that more outside of just this limited area.
Well, I think it's a very wise study, because I know in the public process with the 33rd and Cornhusker, there were a lot of questions about what would happen north of 33rd and Cornhusker. And so I think this is a wise step.
Okay. And then maybe just to make sure this is not a typical interlocal agreement, in this case, this interlocal agreement that's before you today for your consideration states that the City of Lincoln will be contributing that $330,000 to the RTSD to help fund and pay for the contract that your next item, should it be included as or approved as well. So, and my understanding is this interlocal agreement is on the City Council agenda today for introduction, would have public hearing next week. Is that right, David?
That's correct.
Okay.
Cindy?
Yeah, so I don't have questions really so much as a comment. I'm really excited about this too, and I want to tell you that those were some of the concerns that were brought forward to me and that I had about what are we going to do. And so when I started thinking about this corridor enhancement study, and I was a little concerned because it seems to go beyond the perimeters, but when looking at the need to the alignment of Cornhusker that'll have to take place as part of this project, it's a natural match to me, and so I am grateful also that that Public Works was able to identify funds for this. I think it's going to be a great project, and I'm especially excited, which of course a couple of us that have been on the team know, but the rest of you should know, is that we're putting together as part of the sub-area study a Northeast Citizen Advisory Committee that is just open to all, and I've had a great deal of interest from business owners and elected officials and citizens in the area, so pretty excited about that. And I think our kickoff is scheduled for sometime in December, this month. Kickoff meeting, so excited about that. And then we'll see the advisory folks in January, so thank you for your work, appreciate it.
All right, any additional questions or discussion? Now, is there a motion to approve the interlocal agreement with the city?
So moved.
Second? Okay, call the roll, please.
Christensen?
Yes.
Lance?
Yes.
Graybolt?
Yes.
Shore? Wilson?
Yes.
Franklin?
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0. Okay, the second portion of this discussion, contract with Olson.
Okay,
Associates.
Chris Humphrey's come to the diocese, and we'll go over. Obviously, we have the actual contract before you today to start that planning study and get going, and Chris will give you a few more of the details. I want to thank Cindy and Deb specifically for their patience and all the time and effort that they put in that selection process and getting us to this point. It's no small undertaking, and without their help and leadership, we wouldn't be here today. We're excited about the consultant, the team that they've put together, and so thank you for that. So Chris, you want to kind of give us an overview of the contract itself, and Rick Herrick, who is the project manager from Olson Associates, is also here as a team leader and project manager in case you have any questions for them. So, okay, Chris.
Excuse me. Good morning, Chris Humphrey. I'm the RTSD project manager for the 33rd and Cornhusker project. And in front of you is the contract with Olson Associates in the amount of $932,251.14 to provide professional engineering services for this next phase of the 33rd and Cornhusker project. And basically what these services entail is a portion of what David was talking about with the sub-area plan and the corridor plan. And then with these services, we'll also build upon what we did with the Pell study in terms of the roadway alignments. So we will vet the roadway alignments that were developed as part of the Pell study. In addition, develop other alternatives that mesh very well with the sub-area plan, and we'll vet those against the project's purpose and need, which is part of our environmental commitments that we'll have with the project, and then also some additional goals associated with the sub-area plan, and incorporate that in there. And then this contract will last about 1 year, and at that time we'll enter into the next phase of the contract, which is the environmental NEPA portion of the contract. I just want to also point out that there is a contract modification in here. Like Roger was saying, this will be introduced to City Council today with action proposed for next week. If for some reason the City Council does not take action by January 31st of 2018, this contract would become null and void. So I just want to point that out as well. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Cindy?
Thank you. And just so that everyone knows, my understanding is that this particular action isn't adding any time to the project at all. The study and so forth. It hasn't affected the projected start date and so forth. Should we?
Correct. The schedule that was proposed as part of the Pell study, I think we're still on schedule for that. I've been telling people there's a lot of steps that need to happen between now and when we start construction. So construction's still pretty far off. Right now, I've been telling people to anticipate construction about 2026. That really depends a lot on what sort of NEPA classification that we will need to do with this project. So there's basically two different levels of environmental study that we will have to do with this project. One's called an environmental assessment, and the other one's called an environmental impact statement. And the environmental impact statement is a little bit more detailed, and it'll add a little bit more time. So talking with different agencies, we're always looking for efficiencies and to try to get this project to construction sooner rather than later. So even now we're being mindful of that schedule far out, because that'll just save us inflation costs, and it would provide us what we want to, the sooner the better.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Any additional questions? Cindy did reference the opportunity for citizen input in this next phase, and they can go to the website, call RTSD office, any of those ways, and we'd be glad to.
The website is 33rdcornhusker.com, so people can contact any of you, and then you can just funnel maybe those requests through me, and then that'll be one of our discussion items. This advisory committee is something that's new that we didn't have with the Pell study, and that just gives us an opportunity to engage the public at a little bit higher level, that we can have this group of people, of really community champions, that we can discuss and work through topics that come up during the course of this. And we're anticipating this advisory group to meet from now, basically, until we complete final design.
And it's really the opportunity more now for a community branding opportunity as opposed to just looking at the design of a single dual bridge structure. So picture's a little broader now. Any other questions? If not, is there a motion to approve the 33rd and Cornhusker contract with Olson Associates?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, call the roll, please.
Lamb,
Yes.
Raybold,
Yes.
Shore,
Yes.
Wilson,
Yes.
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously. I look forward to a long and prosperous relationship. Moving on to budget status.
Okay, one of the attachments online was our fiscal year budget and expenditure report, and attached also with that was the 12-year CIP. I think it's always important for us in the community to keep those two documents together, with the RTSD only approving an annual budget. Unless you look at the CIP that goes out 6 and 12 years, you really don't have a roadmap to those projects. And two of those interlocals that were approved today have funding in future years, which I think is the rest of the story. Very briefly, in the operating budget, which is $85,500, we've only expended a little over 20%. Services for superintendent haven't been billed out. Typically, the city bills around the 1st of January and then towards the end of the year in two equal. We've paid out for accounting and auditing $11,500. The other expenditure, a little over $2,200, is legal services, and we continue. I have done additional work, and Bill Kudelik has done a lot of review on the interlocal agreements and the contract documents. He and I have also been working with the City of Lincoln on streamlining. Excuse me. I also have drainage, Todd. And trying to make sure that our standard engineering agreement document that we have online is consistent with today's practices, and that is still ongoing. Within the actual capital improvement portion, it shows a large expenditure of over $10 million. The big piece of that obviously was a $10 million expenditure to the city for the South Beltway. Other projects are moving along fairly slowly. You heard an update on Pine Lake Road and the Jamaica Trail. I don't really have much of anything else to point out unless you have some questions. Obviously, we'll start seeing some expenditures coming through for 33rd and Cornhusker and the engineering that's starting on that with the approval of that contract today. I think I don't have anything else on that unless folks have questions.
Cindy?
Thank you. Does this include, this new report, does it include the transfer of the $38,000 that we just voted on?
The budget will, with the approval of the amendment, the overall budget dollars don't change because we just move money from one project account to another. We increased the contract with Olson's, but we did not increase the overall budget or the CIP.
Okay, and so I guess I'm just wondering if that's been moved within this, or...
Within this one, no.
Okay.
It would have been presumptuous of me to have moved that and prior to the board taking action.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions on the budget status? We move on to any project or crossing updates.
Okay, quickly, just some updates on crossing activity and stuff in the community. OPPD crossing at 84th Street south of Highway 2 has a new full-depth concrete crossing that was
beautiful.
Completed.
It's beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you. I've been informed by the city, and I would want the board to know, in coordination, I do attend a city coordination meeting almost weekly to see what projects the city is working on and what the county is going to be working on to make sure we're trying to coordinate those. And as part of that, the city earlier last week informed me that BNSF will be in and doing some repair to the 2nd and South Street railroad crossing. They've not asked for any repair money or assistance from the RTSD, so I guess that's good, but sometime within the next few weeks, they should be improving that crossing. I have an agreement, or we have an agreement in concept with OL&B to repair and replace the crossing on Y Street by their concrete plant. That work probably doesn't get done till spring, but we would be looking at putting in a new improved crossing in there that we hopefully would need less maintenance on into the future. Building off of that, continuing to have discussions with Lincoln Lumber to try to improve or replace the crossing at 22nd Street north of Vine. That line goes over to Lincoln Lumber. So that is a discussion that is ongoing. The city this upcoming summer will be resurfacing Fletcher Street from 56th over to 70th Street area. There is an old spur line that crosses Fletcher at about 68th Street, and as part of that project, we've worked with the business and the railroads. The city will remove those tracks from the actual street right-of-way and pave through there so we won't have disrepair in the future. Those aren't being used. The RTSD would help pay for the removal of those tracks. Let's see, the crossing on Denton Road just east of Denton has been repaired and fixed by BNSF, and I think, Ms. Shore, you had an opportunity to visit that one with the county engineer here a while back, and it was
we just
better.
reopened a bridge on Denton Road last
Okay.
week, so I had the opportunity to look at that crossing and innovative new bridge design that they're using with regards to reflectors.
Okay.
And
That's another crossing that the railroad did not ask for repair or assistance in cost share from the RTSD, and I guess if they're willing to do some of the work, we'll go ahead and let them do it. I do remind them on crossing repairs, the RTSD will assist in paying for the material if they do the labor to try to facilitate getting some of those done a little bit earlier. We had sent drawings with alternative solutions to West Woodstruck Road in the far southwest part of the county. We sent those to BNSF, and we have not yet heard back from them on, do they have a preference on one repair, one alternative over the other. We're trying to push them to get us some response back, but we don't have anything on that. I also talked with the county engineer this morning. We decided there wasn't anything pressing that required her presence here this morning, but I would remind the board, both the city and the county have street crossings of railroad tracks that markings, the paint that's showing and advising people that railroad crossing is coming are needing to be updated. In fact, I think that need to be repainted out there on West Denton Road. So both the city and county, for that work that they'll be doing on through into next year, they'd be submitting bills, and the RTSD would help pay for those markings and signage for safety improvements. Those are required by the Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices, so they are a legal requirement, and the RTSD will help pay for those. That's kind of where we are on crossings. I know there's a couple of other crossings north of Lincoln along the UP line that the county engineer and I continue to want to work with the Department of Roads on some improvements up there, but we'll keep working on those in upcoming years. With that, I'd answer any questions about anything else on crossings or projects.
project in every quadrant of town underway. So, any final questions for Roger or any of the other team members that are here? If not, we'll look at item 13. The RTSD meeting schedule for 2018 is as listed. Always 11 a.m., but alternating Mondays and Tuesdays. This time we'll take any additional public comment on non-agenda items. Seeing none, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Call the roll, please.
Gribble?
Yes.
Shore?
Yes.
Wilson?
Yes.
Brinkman?
Yes.
Christensen?
Yes.
Yes.
Motion carries. We are adjourned. Thank you very much.